Day 51. Leviticus 26-27. You must not make idols for yourselves or set up a carved image or sacred pillar, you must not place a sculpted stone in your land to bow down to it. For I am the Lord your God. You must keep my Sabbaths and have reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If you follow my statutes and carefully keep my commandments, I will give you rains in their season, and the land will yield its produce, and the trees of the field will bear their fruit. Your threshing will continue until the grape harvest, and the grape harvest will continue until sowing time. You will have your fill of food to eat and will dwell securely in your land. And I will give peace to the land, and you will lie down with nothing to fear. I will rid the land of dangerous animals, and no sword will pass through your land. You will pursue your enemies, and they will fall by the sword before you. 5 of you will pursue 100, and 100 of you will pursue 10,000, and your enemies will fall by the sword before you. I will turn toward you and make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will establish my covenant with you. You will still be eating the old supply of grain when you need to clear it out to make room for the new. And I will make my dwelling place among you, and my soul will not despise you. I will walk among you and be your God, and you will be my people. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt so that you would no longer be slaves to the Egyptians. I broke the bars of your yoke and enabled you to walk in uprightness. If, however, you fail to obey me and to carry out all these commandments, and if you reject my statutes, despise my ordinances, and neglect to carry out all my commandments, and so break my covenant, then this is what I will do to you: I will bring upon you sudden terror, wasting disease, and fever that will destroy your sight and drain your life. You will sow your seed in vain, because your enemies will eat it. And I will set my face against you, so that you will be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you, and you will flee when no one pursues you. And if after all this you will not obey me, I will proceed to punish you sevenfold for your sins. I will break down your stubborn pride and make your sky like iron and your land like bronze, and your strength will be spent in vain. For your land will not yield its produce, and the trees of the land will not bear their fruit. If you walk in hostility toward me and refuse to obey me, I will multiply your plagues 7 times, according to your sins. I will send wild animals against you to rob you of your children, destroy your livestock, and reduce your numbers, until your roads lie desolate. And if in spite of these things you do not accept my discipline, but continue to walk in hostility toward me, then I will act with hostility toward you, and I will strike you sevenfold for your sins. And I will bring a sword against you to execute the vengeance of the covenant. Though you withdraw into your cities, I will send a plague among you, and you will be delivered into the hand of the enemy. When I cut off your supply of bread, 10 women will bake your bread in a single oven and dole out your bread by weight, so that you will eat but not be satisfied. But if in spite of all this you do not obey me, but continue to walk in hostility toward me, then I will walk in fury against you, and I, even I, will punish you sevenfold for your sins. You will eat the flesh of your own sons and daughters. I will destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and heap your lifeless bodies on the lifeless remains of your idols, and my soul will despise you. I will reduce your cities to rubble and lay waste your sanctuaries, and I will refuse to smell the pleasing aroma of your sacrifices. And I will lay waste the land, so that your enemies who dwell in it will be appalled. But I will scatter you among the nations and will draw out a sword after you as your land becomes desolate and your cities are laid waste. Then the land shall enjoy its Sabbaths all the days it lies desolate, while you are in the land of your enemies. At that time the land will rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. As long as it lies desolate, the land will have the rest it did not receive during the Sabbaths when you lived in it. As for those of you who survive, I will send a faintness into their hearts in the lands of their enemies, so that even the sound of a windblown leaf will put them to flight. And they will flee as one flees the sword, and fall when no one pursues them. They will stumble over one another as before the sword, though no one is behind them. So you will not be able to stand against your enemies. You will perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies will consume you. Those of you who survive in the lands of your enemies will waste away in their iniquity and will decay in the sins of their fathers. But if they will confess their iniquity and that of their fathers in the unfaithfulness that they practiced against me, by which they have also walked in hostility toward me, and I acted with hostility toward them and brought them into the land of their enemies, and if their uncircumcised hearts will be humbled and they will make amends for their iniquity, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob and my covenant with Isaac and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land. For the land will be abandoned by them, and it will enjoy its Sabbaths by lying desolate without them. And they will pay the penalty for their iniquity, because they rejected my ordinances and abhorred my statutes. Yet in spite of this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject or despise them so as to destroy them and break my covenant with them, for I am the Lord their God. But for their sake I will remember the covenant with their fathers, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations, that I might be their God. I am the Lord. These are the statutes, ordinances, and laws that the Lord established between himself and the Israelites through Moses on Mount Sinai. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when someone makes a special vow to the Lord involving the value of persons, if the valuation concerns a male from 20 to 60 years of age, then your valuation shall be 50 shekels of silver, according to the sanctuary shekel. Or if it is a female, then your valuation shall be 30 shekels. And if the person is from 5 to 20 years of age, then your valuation for the male shall be 20 shekels, and for the female 10 shekels. Now if the person is from 1 month to 5 years of age, then your valuation for the male shall be 5 shekels of silver, and for the female 3 shekels of silver. And if the person is 60 years of age or older, then your valuation shall be 15 shekels for the male and 10 shekels for the female. But if the one making the vow is too poor to pay the valuation, he is to present the person before the priest, who shall set the value according to what the one making the vow can afford. If he vows an animal that may be brought as an offering to the Lord, any such animal given to the Lord shall be holy. He must not replace it or exchange it, either good for bad or bad for good. But if he does substitute one animal for another, both that animal and its substitute will be holy. But if the vow involves any of the unclean animals that may not be brought as an offering to the Lord, the animal must be presented before the priest. The priest shall set its value, whether high or low, as the priest values it, the price will be set. If, however, the owner decides to redeem the animal, he must add a fifth to its value. Now if a man consecrates his house as holy to the Lord, then the priest shall value it either as good or bad. The price will stand just as the priest values it. But if he who consecrated his house redeems it, he must add a fifth to the assessed value, and it will belong to him. If a man consecrates to the Lord a parcel of his land, then your valuation shall be proportional to the seed required for it, 50 shekels of silver for every homer of barley seed. If he consecrates his field during the year of Jubilee, the price will stand according to your valuation. But if he consecrates his field after the Jubilee, the priest is to calculate the price in proportion to the years left until the next year of Jubilee, so that your valuation will be reduced. And if the one who consecrated the field decides to redeem it, he must add a fifth to the assessed value, and it shall belong to him. If, however, he does not redeem the field, or if he has sold it to another man, it may no longer be redeemed. When the field is released in the Jubilee, it will become holy, like a field devoted to the Lord, it becomes the property of the priests. Now if a man consecrates to the Lord a field he has purchased, which is not a part of his own property, then the priest shall calculate for him the value up to the year of Jubilee, and the man shall pay the assessed value on that day as a sacred offering to the Lord. In the year of Jubilee the field shall return to the one from whom it was bought, the original owner of the land. Every valuation will be according to the sanctuary shekel, 20 gerahs to the shekel. But no one may consecrate a firstborn of the livestock, because a firstborn belongs to the Lord. Whether it is an ox or a sheep, it is the Lord's. But if it is among the unclean animals, then he may redeem it according to your valuation and add a fifth of its value. If it is not redeemed, then it shall be sold according to your valuation. Nothing that a man sets apart to the Lord from all he owns, whether a man, an animal, or his inherited land, can be sold or redeemed. Everything so devoted is most holy to the Lord. No person set apart for destruction may be ransomed, he must surely be put to death. Thus any tithe from the land, whether from the seed of the land or the fruit of the trees, belongs to the Lord, it is holy to the Lord. If a man wishes to redeem part of his tithe, he must add a fifth to its value. Every 10th animal from the herd or flock that passes under the shepherd's rod will be holy to the Lord. He must not inspect whether it is good or bad, and he shall not make any substitution. But if he does make a substitution, both the animal and its substitute shall become holy, they cannot be redeemed. These are the commandments that the Lord gave to Moses for the Israelites on Mount Sinai. Mark 2. A few days later Jesus went back to Capernaum. And when the people heard that he was home, they gathered in such large numbers that there was no more room, not even outside the door, as Jesus spoke the word to them. Then a paralytic was brought to him, carried by 4 men. Since they were unable to get to Jesus through the crowd, they uncovered the roof above him, made an opening, and lowered the paralytic on his mat. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." But some of the scribes were sitting there and thinking in their hearts, "Why does this man speak like this? He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" At once Jesus knew in his spirit that they were thinking this way within themselves. "Why are you thinking these things in your hearts?" he asked. "Which is easier, to say to a paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up, pick up your mat, and walk'? But so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, he said to the paralytic, 'I tell you, get up, pick up your mat, and go home.' And immediately the man got up, picked up his mat, and walked out in front of them all. As a result, they were all astounded and glorified God, saying, 'We have never seen anything like this.'" Once again Jesus went out beside the sea. All the people came to him, and he taught them there. As he was walking along, he saw Levi son of Alphaeus sitting at the tax booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Levi got up and followed him. While Jesus was dining at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. When the scribes who were Pharisees saw Jesus eating with these people, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus told them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were often fasting. So people came to Jesus and asked, "Why don't your disciples fast like John's disciples and those of the Pharisees?" Jesus replied, "How can the guests of the bridegroom fast while he is with them? As long as he is with them, they cannot fast. But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, then they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, the new piece will pull away from the old, and a worse tear will result. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. Instead, new wine is poured into new wineskins." One Sabbath Jesus was passing through the grain fields, and his disciples began to pick the heads of grain as they walked along. So the Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" Jesus replied, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? During the high priesthood of Abiathar, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which was lawful only for the priests. And he gave some to his companions as well." Then Jesus declared, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath."